small guys. I never had a hate for small guys. I am a fan of the smaller guy. I'm more of a fan of the athletic guy when it comes to some of the more top main event level players. Jericho in his prime, Rey Mysterio, Shelton Benjamin, John Morrison, and most of those guys I wanted to either be built like or do most of their moves. Or Kofi Kingston. There's plenty of other guys. So whenever I say that certain guys from the Indies won't go over, it's specifically enough because they're not that much of a well-established and down talent other than what they did in like Japan, Ring of Honor, small butt-ass places with no other stuff to go by. At least by CM Punk standard, yes, he was a skinny, ill-admission, relatable nut that's straight edge and of course reliant more on work rate than actual in-ring work. But he had stuff that certain guys from the Indies uh didn't have and could obviously be attributed over to at least top level stuff that he had attractability. The guy was one of the best talkers I've heard outside of WWE. He was completely sarcastic, had a sarcastic charisma, and could get over. So don't try to start this over like I have a hate for guys that are high flyers or something like this. Ricochet couldn't get over because he has no way of getting over. He doesn't have a personality. He doesn't have a charm. The guy has a decent look, and I'm not saying that the guy isn't athletic and he isn't fun to watch in the ring, but that's why he got unsuccessful, and he got overly pushed for doing so. He came from like having the North American title, beat beating AJ Styles for the U.S. title, like I think it was Stomping Ground, and then losing it later at SummerSlam or something. And he comes around he comes around getting overly pushed over to face off against Brock Lesnar, and some guys would think like this would be like completely shoveled off because he got squashed against Lesnar, and then he just lost to Riddick Moss, and now he's getting jobbed out to the freaking Retribution stable, and I already shoveled that faction straight to the depths of hell. It's really that trash. And if you think Ricochet has any subjugated God to get himself over with his happy to be there personality, I only agreed like there's a YouTuber out there that had this brought up to my attention. His name is just Alex. If you can subscribe to the guy, some of this stuff is entertaining, but this is just a respectful disagreement of points of view. There's already guys like that, and he brought this up also in his video, that can do this, but have a certain charm or look to them that make them more interesting. Kevin Owens can already do impressive stuff like this, and he's fatter, more unappealing, but he has a talking ability. He can make interesting storylines. Even if WWE wants to force him off to be a babyface, the guy has stuff to make himself work, and now he's gonna be part of a main event storyline on SmackDown involving Roman Reigns as the heel now. And back in 2017, the roles were reversed when Kevin Owens was Universal Champion and Roman was the babyface chasing him for the title. But here's the things: those were the lowest ratings on Raw. And that was when we were seeing the down level, when we were pushing guys like Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, and freaking Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens was like a world champion for like the most of the later half of 2016 to 2017, and we were getting 1.7s, and we were thinking, Jericho probably carrying off the show and then making Big Cass heel isn't doing much for a show, isn't it? And that can be trotted out, and now we're getting guys that actually look like world champions, and guess what? Ratings are going up. We're getting more optimism over for the fans. Drew McIntyre looks like a top guy, even though he does smartfully moves, he's athletic, and he can keep up with some high-flying dudes, but the guy looks like $1,000,000. He can make promos sound pretty cool, and even though I mock him at times, it's just because it sounds pretty fun to talk like him, and if you don't want to mimic a guy's promo, then he's not doing that much of an impressive job, isn't he? That's just my gripe on it. And Ricochet will never become a main eventer after, even if it's like 16 out of 200 out of millions of people say that, oh my god, he deserves to be pushed more. That's just my thing on it. there's already some stuff that makes him a cut above the rest. And if he just grows a bit of balls and just thinks, hey, can I be given a gimmick or something to at least push myself to get something interesting out of me or something, or else he'll be degraded to NXT just like Finn Balor was. Because guess what happens? He was the first Universal Champion. In the first month that he was in the main roster, he already got pushed up to beat Roman Reigns, main event SummerSlam, and beat Seth Rollins for the Universal title. Then he got his ass injury prone, then injury prone again, put in a crappy storyline afterwards, and knew that he had no character except that he was relying on the Bullet Club. Then they put him with the club again. That couldn't get him over except the Rainbow Sign BS. And other than he's a good wrestler, Finn Balor didn't have much into his character other than he had abs and wore a jacket. Now, Ricochet's only thing that is interesting about him is he likes putting his arm up. We know he's a weeb, he's a high flyer, and that he sort of likes putting his finger up his butt. I don't judge kinks, but I do. And you see stuff like this, and you can see why certain guys, like from guys that are not like entirely up into like hardcore wrestling fan bases, have an issue with guys like that getting, like guys like that, or at least guys from the indies entirely getting over. That's why most people that are not like completely hardcore or Smark related have issues with Seth Rollins in the top of the card, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. Even though Sami Zayn's doing decent enough as Intercontinental Champion, the belt looks ugly. It's stuff like that you give characters for. You don't just make them. You don't just make Ricochet Ricochet, because that doesn't draw. Deal with it. That's how the world works. That's how the company works. That's how they make money. Chris Jericho didn't get over being the Lionheart like how he was in Japan. He got over because of his characters. And because he can talk, Vince can utilize that when they gave him the suit gimmick, when they gave him the scarf gimmick. And as well, some people can find that dumb. It got over, the fans reacted, and it actually made reasons to watch Raw sometimes. That's just my opinion on the matter. Ricochet seems like an athletic dude. He obviously looks like a nice guy. He seems like a well-talked individual, and he has moves that can be somewhat impressive. But if I can already see like 75% of the roster, especially heavyweights, do that in AEW, and Keith Lee, Drew McIntyre that can do a tope freaking suicida, dumb like, and most of the other and like most of the guys in Retribution. And you don't even need athleticism. Look at the Fiend. The guy doesn't even have to show up most of his moveset, and people want to watch because the Fiend is actually interesting. As well as I think he's overrated, and I think he's already past his expiration date of actually being popular. People still want to see what's going to happen with the Fiend because that's at least a character. He's a character, and Ricochet doesn't have that. So that's just my response on that entirely. If you think differently, comment in the comment section below, because I don't think I'm going to be swayed over from this BS. Ricochet is going to get over because of what he did in Japan. Lucha Underground, at least in Lucha Underground, he was Prince Puma. People know him because it was Prince Puma. And most people, and yes, the wrestlers' opinions do matter, because those guys have 20 years of experience. And yes, the fans does, but they have more experience. Just saying. Doing all that flippy nonsense, that was a Super J Cup. They weren't main eventing. The match would have been more memorable if they had a bit of more story around the tournament, other than these those rando high flyers just doing their moves looking like backup stunt doubles for Power Rangers. The most I can remember is some ridiculous 619 he did from the corner just to reverse into a freaking reverse Frankensteiner from the outside. These guys doing mega flips and no selling cutters, springboard cutters, counters into some kind of trouble in paradise while Ricochet was sitting down to end up with Will Ospreay winning the match anyway. And I can sort of see the fun appeal in that, but that's not going to make the match either more memorable or at least make these guys like subjugated to have their own identity. And that's why Ricochet can't get over. You can just take it as you will. Hopefully the guy succeeds somewhere else if he overstays his welcome, they still have nothing to do with him in the company. And I see that happening because the guy doesn't seem to have a personality that shows that he's that ambitious to have any semblance of a character, be that talkative, have that much of a personality. Other than he's Ricochet, he likes putting his arm up, he put his finger up his ass, and most of him is work rate BS that has him jumping several feet in the air and having nothing. Cedric Alexander's the same thing, and look at him getting over with the Hurt Business. So you could make something with high flyers. Ricochet's one of those guys that won't look like they're going to change. And hopefully he does, because I do want wrestlers to be successful. We just fired 30-something guys in just a span of the summer. So we need to do something with the talent that we have, because the only person giving us notoriety in the company that we're actually doing something cool for characters is either The Fiend, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Alexa Bliss, sometimes Charlotte Flair, and Roman Reigns. That's not good enough. I'm not saying that we need to bring back WWE over to mainstream appeal. At least bring us up to a notable fan base that it doesn't feel like I'm talking about some underground anime to my fans, even though I'm bringing out a literal show that's been on television for nearly 30 years. Ricochet is one of those issues, because one of these no personality, no non-charismatic, smart BS high flyers with no semblance of a character that Triple H is just going to bounce up and harass Vince for, thinking, oh my god, the Smarks love this. What about outside of wrestling? What else can he do? That's it. And I'm not trying to, like, bury Ricochet. This is just a semblance of what probably he needs to do to make sure he gets on the right page, just so he can stay on the company he probably wanted to work for a long-ass time, probably like any other guys that came from NXT or something, so they can make their money, get enough notoriety, get over, and have an accomplished and well-deserving career, or else you're going to end up as bitter as Mike Bennett was. And that's my opinion, or like most of the roster from AEW. Because we know that most of these guys are bitter anyway. So, that's just my opinion on the matter. If you guys think differently, I can understand why, but know that I'm coming from a right place, that I want Ricochet to succeed. But you can understand why he's not getting over from the company for most of the guys that you've been watching him probably since he's started in the indies, that he's not going to be as successful in the WWE. That's it coming from me. Comment how you feel in the comment section below.